On the Shaun Abrahams matter, we're going back to the court, and Takwana is standing by with a guest. And Takwana, what's the latest?
Well, good day again, Desiree. Welcome back to the Constitutional Court, where I am with one of the two people who were at the center, really, of this court challenge that ended up in the highest court in the land, the Constitutional Court. The other one was Shaun Abrahams, who has just found out today that his appointment is now invalid. And the other one was Mxolisi Nxasana, whom Corruption Watch said to me earlier they had hoped that the court would say that he should be reinstated, but he hasn't been. So I just want to find out if this is a bittersweet victory for you.
Well, bittersweet victory in the sense that I'm happy. It's sweet in the sense that my appeal has been upheld by the Constitutional Court. Bitter in the sense that the court didn't order my reinstatement and ordered that I have to repay the whole amount.
Yes. Now, let's talk about the fact that the court says that the fact that you took the payout that was given to you means that you cannot be not held liable also, or not, you are not necessarily not to blame.
Yes, that's what the court said. I think the court arrived at a decision invoking the provisions of Section 172 of the Constitution, which basically empowers the court to give an order that is just and equitable. Ordinarily, as the court has explained, that ordinarily it would have the outcome that would have followed after it had found that my removal from office was unconstitutional was the reinstatement. And the court went on to explain why it felt that it had to invoke those provisions. Well, what we should not lose sight of is that it's a split decision. We have a minority decision that found in my favor, which basically was of the view that I should be reinstated, but the majority decision was of the view that it will be not just and equitable that I've been reinstated. And Justice Madlanga expressed the view that even if the fear was that even if they were to reinstate me, there is a possibility that the president might then decide to institute an inquiry into my fitness to hold office based on the fact that I was participant in the unlawful settlement. But at the same time, he equally expressed his sympathy for me for having been subjected to such amount of pressure from the president to vacate office.
What next for you?
What next for me is to abide the court decision and see how I then execute the court decision. And I'm a practitioner, I'm an attorney by profession, and I will then continue in practice as an attorney. But the problem that I have shared with one of your colleagues here for the, I think, E-News, is that what I feel strongly about, and perhaps what the court did not take into account, is the fact that I had built up my practice for more than 16 years at the time when I was appointed. I'm not crying, I'm not a crybaby, but I'm saying when I got a call from the former President Zuma to appoint me, I had to give up my practice without getting a cent out of it. And I said to myself, I'm coming to serve the people of South Africa. And what then followed was that I was then subjected to all this type of humiliation. And I'm vindicated, I'm glad that no one has ever expressed a view that whilst I was in office, during the short stint that I was in the office, no one can criticize me of incompetence, no one can criticize me of unfitness and to hold office. And the judge sympathizes with me that I was subjected to this pressure, but he then expected me to be supernatural, and I doubt that there are people out there who could have withstood the pressure that I withstood throughout until I took the settlement.
Now, the court has said that Mr. Shaun Abrahams was a beneficiary of improper conduct in the sense that he was appointed following an invalid vacation by yourself. But do you not then see yourself as another beneficiary of improper conduct in the sense that you were appointed by the president, and clearly now it seems that he had other motives in terms of appointing you? But also, I think in addition to that, can we as South Africa look at the Act, the NPA Act, in terms of who should appoint the head of the NPA, having been there, with a view to maybe reviewing it so that the appointment is made by the National Assembly as opposed to the president by himself?
Well, firstly, I disagree with you when you say I was also a beneficiary as Shaun. The court was very clear when it said Shaun was a beneficiary of an unlawful conduct by the president. When I was appointed, there was no unlawful conduct by the president. Then I was appointed when there was a vacancy. Then he is a beneficiary of an unlawful conduct by the president because he had unconstitutionally removed me from office by putting pressure on me. I think we must distinguish the two. Then coming to the issue of, I think it's not for me to really say who should appoint the National Director of Public Prosecution, and it was not before this court either. But what was before this court is the powers of the president to interfere with the office of the NDPP or the National Prosecuting.
But as an advocate, as a legal professional, do you think that it helps to have one person, even though they are the president, to be the one person who is solely responsible for appointing a position as important as the head of the prosecuting authority in a criminal justice system, in a democratic, in a constitutional democracy?
I take it that when he does that in consultation with his cabinet and whoever who advises him. I mean, it's his prerogative to make an appointment. That is after due processes have been followed. I don't think that the president will wake up tomorrow morning and say, I appoint so and so, without following the processes, the necessary processes. I think that he does that in consultation with his advisors and with his cabinet ministers. Minister of Justice also is consulted, as far as I know. And it is there in the Constitution. Nobody has challenged that power of the president so far, and I cannot take it more than that. Remember that the president appoints the judges. It's his prerogative. The fact that there is a Judicial Service Commission, they conduct interviews, but he is the one who finally makes the appointments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mxolisi Nxasana, the former NDPP National Director of Public Prosecutions, who came before Shaun Abrahams, whom the court has now said his vacation of that office was invalid, but of course it has not reinstated him. And of course the other major decision that has been made by this court, that the appointment of Shaun Abrahams himself was in fact invalid, and ordering Mxolisi Nxasana to repay 10 million of the 17.3 million that he had been paid by former President Jacob Zuma to vacate that office. Blaine?
Yeah. Thanks a lot there to Ntakwana Ngatana coming from the Constitutional Court. Mxolisi Nxasana saying that it's a bittersweet moment for him. He's happy that his appeal has been upheld, but that he has to pay back. It's interesting that he said he has to pay back all of the money, and yet the judge said
just over 10 million.
Just over 10 million.
Yeah.
And the payout was 17 million. So that will be another one to follow there.
Yeah, we'll get some clarification with regards to that. Well, there you